huge credit to Chris Kleiman for recognizing that Kansas State needed to go for fourth downs. And early in the game, you're down 7-0, and he knows you can't settle for a field goal there. And what I really like, John, I was sitting there with Brody and Vanessa. I was like, 3rd and 16. I was like, there's no way we're going to convert a 3rd and 16. Huge play that's understated is the little tunnel screen they ran to Dylan Edwards to pick up 12 yards, which is probably clearly a play call to get them in a 4th and manageable with the mindset that they were going to go for it on 4th down. Gets them into a 4th and 4. And then Avery Johnson makes a nice play scrambling and gets it in the end zone for a touchdown, ties it up at 7. And K-State eventually outscores them, goes on a 21-0 scoring stretch to take that 21-7 lead from there. So a huge moment in the game early on to kind of set the tone.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible.
Hello and welcome into another edition of Three Ma. John Kurtz, Cole Manbeck with you today. DY traveling back from Boulder as we speak. He's coming back with a win. In this case, they wins 31-28 in Boulder. Some late game heroics from Avery Johnson and Jayce Brown saved the day after K-State had controlled the entire game, only to see it evaporate there in the fourth quarter. Defense made some plays late, a bit of controversy at the end of the game, and after all of it, K-State walks out of there with a huge, huge win in the context of the Big 12 standings and the rest of this season. You know what that means? Raise your glass of Ben Holiday bottled in Bond bourbon. You could also raise a glass of 360 vodka if that is your poison of choice, but our friends at Holiday Distillery bring that to you. We appreciate them as always, and still a couple of weeks to get some ready for your tailgate for the KU game, which will be the next home game, of course. And, hey, I mean, next week, West Virginia, you're going to have a lot of moonshine out there. Maybe bring some Ben Holiday bottled in Bond bourbon to our friends out in Morgantown if you're going to be headed there for the game. But Cole, man, that was quite an exhausting night, obviously very late. Tough to get to bed after watching that and sweating it out and all the stress. I never felt completely comfortable, but I was pleasantly surprised there when it's 21-7, 24-14. I mean, you know, K-State was doing a good job maintaining a double-digit lead there. The defense in the first half in particular had a really nice half, keeping that Colorado offense at bay. And boy, it took some heroics, but I think to me, the bottom line here is that this team really grew up a lot. This was so much more of a mature performance than what we saw in Provo. And I guess you could debate the merits of Colorado versus BYU as a team, but the environment definitely was lively. We don't have DY here to tell us in person, but I know he told us just via text from the stadium last night, like that was a really rowdy place. And they experienced plenty of adversity, like coughing up a 14-point lead in the second half and still had the poise to come back, make the plays to win the game. And he had individual redemption moments like DJ Giddens dropping the first wheel route that probably cost them 4 points eventually. And then he catches the second one that sets up the game-winning TD. So you can go down the list. A lot of guys made plays when they needed them, but I thought this was a huge growth step for a team that we've talked about needing to go through some of that on the road and prove that they can do it.
Yeah, I mean, when DY talked on the pregame show about the steps to growth and learning how to win, I thought this K-State football team illustrated that on Saturday night. And to me, it goes back to what you just said about the adversity, John, because at BYU, when things went south, they didn't have an answer. They could not stop the dominoes from going, the snowball effect that occurred. And in this situation, it would have been very easy to just put your head down and say, gosh, here we go again. You know, you cough up that lead. You felt like you dominated the entirety of the game, and then you blow it at the end with 3.5 minutes left with the pick and then the touchdown by Colorado to go up by 4 points. And this time, what was different is Kansas State didn't go into a shell. Avery Johnson and the Kansas State offense answered back very quickly and score on 3 plays, 84 yards. And we talked about this offense needing to be more explosive this season. And they put it on a perfect example right there with the 34-yard pass to DJ Giddens to get things going, followed by the pass to Jayce Brown, which was a heck of a play by him. A nice ball by Avery not to overthrow him. And then Jayce using his body to kind of wall off the defender to get the PI and then also still finish the catch and get into the end zone. And then after that, it's not over, obviously. You got 2 minutes and 14 seconds and a timeout for Colorado, which is just a ton of time for an offense that can sling it all around the field and, run a hurry-up type tempo. And the K-State defense not only holds, John, but gets them on a 4-and-out, a turnover on downs. Colorado doesn't even achieve a first down. I think a large part of that is due to just the threat of the pass rush as well. I mean, K-State's playing down some guys in the secondary there, so you're still worried and really nervous that Colorado at least is going to get into field goal range, but you don't even allow that. You're playing down some guys in the secondary. Colorado is worried about the K-State pass rush. They get a false start. That puts them in a 3rd and 11. And then K-State gives the check down, and they're in a 4th and 5, and they throw it deep, and Keenan Garber does a nice job of getting his head turned around. Probably a 50-50 thing they could maybe call, but I thought Keenan Garber had nice coverage and certainly understand no flag there because he did get his head whipped around when you look at the replays of it. So outstanding job of answering the call this time when push came to shove, that the offense had an answer, and they did it quickly. And then the defense was able to shut things down after they had struggled in the second half.
Well, cool. Don't tell Joel Klatt that was an appropriately adjudicated play at the end of the game because, boy, he was crying. I mean, Skip Bayless was crying, but I feel like that should be enough evidence to Joel Klatt that his position's probably not the correct one there on the pass interference at the end of the game. I'm honestly shocked we haven't seen Louis Riddick weigh in. I would love to know what his opinion is of the PI at the end of the game, too. I would also just say, look, I'll take it. Colorado seemed to be just killing K-State with just guys kind of out in space over the middle, more like intermediate stuff, short to intermediate stuff. And then when they need 6 yards, you're chucking it one-on-one deep down the sideline. I get it. They're confident and they have, receivers that are great. And that was for Shepard, who's like longest and rangiest of anybody they have in the receiver corps. But I don't know. If I'm a Colorado fan, I'm a bit frustrated that that's the route that Shedeur decided to go on 4th and 6. I mean, if it's 2nd and 6, 3rd and 6, maybe 4th and 6, I wasn't crazy about that if I'm just thinking about it from a Colorado perspective. But like I said, I'll take it.
I was excited when I saw the ball sailing deep. I was excited because that means it's at best probably a 50-50 ball. It's not a wide open guy and a check down. You got to have a lot of things go your way to hit on that pass, and it's on the boundary as well. I think it even would have let him out of bounds, even if they would have. So I was pretty relieved that Shedeur chucked it deep. Now, to his credit, he also converted a 2nd and 28 on a deep ball, like a couple drives earlier. That was incredibly frustrating. But K-State's defense stepped up when they really needed to there and came up with a stop. So huge answer and a gigantic win for this football program to go on the road and steal one here. And like you said, I mean, really dominated from start to finish until the end stretch there. You never feel all that safe, especially with a Colorado attack, like we mentioned, that can dial up the tempo. And when they started going hurry up, K-State and altitude, even though K-State destroyed them in time of possession, you could see guys getting a little bit gassed, and that Colorado team can find some open guys throughout. They got a lot of weapons at wide receiver, even with the injuries that they suffered during the game with Jimmy Horn and Travis Hunter going down, and then eventually Omarion Miller. But that's the thing about Colorado, John, is Omarion Miller is their number 5 wide receiver, and he's a 6'2" sophomore. And he doesn't get talked about as much because he hasn't done as much this year. But last year against USC as a freshman, Omarion Miller had 7 catches for 196 yards. So he's got the capacity to go off on you too. And he did against K-State. He had 8 for 145. They just have, I keep hearing all these talk about the injuries, but I mean, still Shedeur Sanders has a lot of guys he can throw to, Wester as well. So they have a lot of guys, even with the injuries that they suffered, that they can get the ball to. So huge credit to the K-State defense, like we said, playing down several guys in the secondary. K-State's best secondary player, Jacob Parrish, never returned after that injury in the 3rd quarter, went to the locker room, never came out. Hopefully he is okay, but K-State playing without him was still able to get the job done.
Well, that's a great point. I mean, to tie it to the beginning of this show, saying, hey, they learned to battle through a lot of adversity. All the talk is going to be about Colorado's adversity because, one, it's easier to pinpoint losing Travis Hunter. 2, the broadcast obviously is all over that because it was set to be the Travis Hunter show, from the word go on the broadcast anyway. 3, because Mark Jones, well, I thought he, Mark Jones, I think, did a fine job. It was not as over-the-top Colorado love fest as I was expecting with that. And I will also say, as a play-by-play guy, it can be harder to track if it's like defenders. If it's not, a star player on offense, it's harder to track who's in and who's not because you're not literally like looking at that guy every single time the ball is snapped or whatever. Like K-State missing Marquise Siegel, their best safety for a good chunk of the game, Jacob Harris, their best corner, Justice James, another corner who plays a lot, down 3 bodies in the secondary. It's hard to keep track of like, oh, those guys are out too. But it was very frustrating that the storyline, as he should as a play-by-play guy, continued to be throughout the game, reminding people, oh yeah, Jimmy Horn's out, Travis Hunter's out, so this is really difficult for Colorado. But the counter to that is, okay, well, on the other side, K-State is without its best corner, its best safety, first corner off the bench, in essence, there. And when you talked about Shedeur converting the second and whatever it was, 28, they were picking on Zayshawn Rich, who's a true freshman who had not played outside of special teams before the game on Saturday. Like, that's a tough assignment to go up against, a Colorado receiver corps that still has a lot of firepower. So as much adversity as there was for the Colorado side of things, I'm just... Travis Hunter's phenomenal, but I'm not really here to hear a lot of whining because you knew in the second half Colorado was going to be able to just move the ball. If you weren't getting in Shedeur's face, they were going to move the ball because the secondary was just a bunch of bodies that were guys that have barely played at all. And at the same time, they had been trying to use 6, we heard them talk about this after the game. They were trying to go like dime, like 6 defensive backs a lot of the time. That was what they felt was the best strategy to defend Colorado. And they literally just like ran out of bodies to even be able to do that. So, there's a lot. I think it all kind of evens out, right? That's what happens over the course of a football game and a football season. Oh, by the way, on the other side, K-State couldn't utilize what is arguably the best asset the offense has, maybe 1B to DJ Giddens' legs, Avery Johnson's legs, because he suffered an injury. And when they really want to go to put the game away mode, like that's where Avery Johnson's legs can become the most effective. They said, again, after the game, Chris Kleiman said, like, that was off the table. They weren't going to do that because of the injury that Avery had suffered. So that's just football, man. Like, Colorado was limited, K-State was limited. So it's very annoying to hear about but we will, and you just got to understand that's how it goes because the casuals care about Travis Hunter in Colorado, and so you'll get some of that. But K-State won the game.
Did Chris Kleiman, I didn't have a chance to listen to the full press conference yet. John, did he describe the nature of the injury with Avery?
No, I didn't really hear an explanation from either. Well, no. Avery did offer some. Avery said he had felt it before, like he had something going on there. I can't remember what he called it. It was a little weird. I can try and look it up real quick, but I did catch him in passing saying like he had felt something a little bit earlier, but it sort of went away, and then it just came back up when he threw the pass. But
I'd honestly wondered if it was some sort of oblique cramp or something, because typically a non-contact like oblique injury, because you saw what Quinn Ewers had happen. Quinn Ewers couldn't come back into the game for Texas when that happened. He missed a month. And then Avery comes back in 7-8 minutes after that, after going to the locker room. And it looked like he still was able to torque the hip and get something on his throws the rest of the game when he threw the ball. So a huge relief there that he bounced back okay. Hopefully he's feeling okay today and recovers well over the ensuing days before the trip to Morgantown. But was a little bit concerned about, obviously, when that happened, there was a ton of concern, which, we can get into Taquan Roberson and what he did as well, which I think was a big storyline in the game. And I'm glad a lot of people on social, including you, John, and Curry, have been singing his praises for what he was able to do when he entered into the contest, because that can't be unnoticed. I mean, Taquan Roberson, there's a reason you go out, you get a veteran quarterback through the portal, and Roberson comes in from UConn, and he's not intimidated by the moment. I've seen him before, right when he was at Penn State before UConn. He came in a big atmosphere, I believe, at Kinnick Stadium in Iowa. He's been in those situations before. He jumps in ready to play. I think one of the biggest plays of the game, when K-State's up 14-7, they're at the Colorado 24-yard line. Avery's out of the game. Roberson's at a QB. It's a 3rd and 7. And Taquan Roberson finds Jayce Brown on a 3rd and 7 and gets the first down on a 13-yard gain. Avery eventually comes back in. They get a touchdown. I thought that was a huge moment. Huge shout out to Taquan Roberson for being ready to play and stepping up when this team needed him.
It was, man. I mean, going back to the offseason, I can remember being very, very excited about the fact that really it was more that I had a lot of anxiety about what they were going to do at quarterback behind Avery Johnson, because for that situation right there, at one point you're like, hey, I mean, it's nothing against Knuth, but he's just a guy that hasn't played. And Blake Barnett, I think we like the potential there for the future, but the guy's just young. They're too green. So you needed somebody that could come in and handle themselves. And that's exactly what he did. And they made the point on the broadcast. It was timing, the timing of the out route there was great. And that's the thing, like only an experienced quarterback's going to be able to do. Shout out to Jayce Brown for a great route too. But, there was almost, I saw somebody making the comment. I mean, you can kind of see like Taquan Roberson, maybe in some ways, this is very limited sample size. So understand, like take this with a grain of salt, but you could see like an essence of, all right, like maybe he even like has a better grasp, just like a little bit more confident going through reads, like making decisions and stuff than like Avery has at this point. He obviously does not have the athletic upside and the skill upside of Avery Johnson. But I guess the point is you could tell the maturity and experience that he had, because not just a guy that played a lot at UConn last year, but a guy that started his career at Penn State. Like he's been around major college football for a long time.
Yeah, he released that throw to Jayce before Jayce's head was turned around, which, to your point, timing, confident throw, and a great route by Jayce as his defender goes flying, falls to the ground. You get the first down there, and then K-State punches it in, which was actually a really hilarious moment in the game because Colorado fans didn't understand that K-State could get a first down there at the 1 yard line, and they thought they had stopped K-State for a turnover on downs on that DJ Giddens run. And he actually had the first down, and K-State punches it in on the little 1 yard pass to Jayce Brown when he stretches out and gets it in on 2nd and goal. So that was a huge drive to start the second half. I mean, a 16-play, 81-yard drive that controlled over 8 minutes of clock to start that second half. I thought that really set the tone. K-State got up 21-7. And we talked about going into the game, Colorado was 7th in the country in red zone defense in terms of points allowed. They were top 20 in the country in touchdown rate allowed in the red zone. K-State took 3 drives inside the Colorado red zone, and what did they do? 3 touchdowns. They didn't settle for a field goal. It was different from BYU when they had to settle for those field goals. Instead, this time, K-State punches it in every time they got it in the red zone. The only field goal they settled for was a really nice kick by Chris Tennant to put them up 24-14 when they were at the Colorado 30, which is a 48-yarder, which was a really nice boot by Tennant. So that was a huge play. Also, obviously, huge credit to Chris Kleiman for recognizing that Kansas State needed to go for 4th downs. And early in the game, you're down 7-0, and he knows you can't settle for a field goal there. And what I really like, John, I was sitting there with Brody and Vanessa. I was like, 3rd and 16. I was like, there's no way we're going to convert a 3rd and 16. Huge play that's understated is the little tunnel screen they ran to Dylan Edwards to pick up 12 yards, which is probably clearly a play call to get them in a 4th and manageable with the mindset that they were going to go for it on 4th down. Gets them into a 4th and 4, and then Avery Johnson makes a nice play scrambling and gets it in the end zone for a touchdown, ties it up as 7, and K-State eventually outscores them, goes on a 21-0 scoring stretch to take that 21-7 lead from there. So a huge moment in the game early on to kind of set the tone.
It was. I was very pleasantly surprised when that happened, absolutely. There were a lot of those. What was the sequence when Jaden Jackson, there was a 3rd and long, and Jaden Jackson got him, they wind up calling it 4th and inches. Yeah. He was really close.
No, they let it stand. I was worried they were going to overturn it because his hand hit out of bounds and the ball, but they didn't have a straight down. Yeah. They didn't have a straight down the line shot, so they let it stand. And that was a huge moment too because that was a 3rd and 14, and
right after Avery had missed a wide open tight end, right?
Yeah. It was Will Swanson was missed on the crossing route, which would have been a big play. And then they hit that to Jaden Jackson. Jayce Brown makes a nice little block to seal the edge, get him a few extra yards. He gets the first down. And I believe that was the drive where K-State eventually settled for the field goal to at least get up. You got 3 points out of it because of that play. If you don't make that play, you're punting probably, and Colorado's got a chance to tie. Now, it was still the 3rd quarter, but it's a huge moment as well. You could go up and down the play-by-play chart and relive that game, and we could capture a ton of big moments throughout that played a huge impact in Kansas State winning.
Yeah, and we haven't even really talked about, the guy that's the star of the show, definitely the MVP of the game, and we're going to do that in just a moment. But you need to wear your home field apparel next time you are out supporting the Cats, whether that's this weekend when they are in Morgantown or it is October 26th when Kansas rolls into town. So get to homefieldapparel.com to pick out your favorite from the 50-plus K-State designs that they have there. Or if you want to branch out like our friend Derek, not here to defend himself this time, you can get 100-plus other teams' designs that are out there as well. Homefieldapparel.com, best college gear around. It's what everybody's wearing. You're seeing it literally all over the place. Dominant brand these days in collegiate apparel. Homefieldapparel.com. Use promo code 3MA24 for 15% off your first order. That is promo code 3MA24 for 15% off your first order. And we're back in just a moment.
Looking for tickets for your next event? Tickets for Less is your number one source. Save big on every purchase when you use promo code KCSN at ticketsforless.com. The best part of finding something new is sharing it with your friends. That's exactly what it feels like when you discover that Mint Mobile offers premium wireless service for just $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan. It's such an awesome deal, there's no way you could keep it to yourself. So friends, don't let friends overpay for wireless. And you can say bye-bye to your overpriced wireless plans and switch to Mint Mobile. Mint Mobile is here to rescue you and your friends with premium wireless plans starting at just $15 a month. And if you're worried about bringing over your old phone or your phone number and personal contacts, you can transfer all of that when switching to Mint Mobile. So ditch overpriced wireless with Mint Mobile's deal and get 3 months of premium wireless service for just $15 a month. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/3MA. That's mintmobile.com/3MA. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/3MA. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details.
Cole, it's funny. I was trying to look up the Avery Johnson bit there. I'm just not seeing much. Now, I'm also trying to do it on the fly here. But as I was looking for that, I saw Kellis' story about the injuries, and he did like a little story about the fans booing all those injuries there on that one drive, which was, very on brand for the Colorado fans, but also just like very funny where it's like, and the broadcast, credit to, who was the color guy last night?
Roddy Jones.
Credit to Roddy Jones, because he was pointing this out. He was like, these are not guys that K-State wants to be losing. Like, that was the thing. Like, they were all, it's like both starting corners went down. Your best safety went down in that time period. Another corner goes down. Like, they were not at all players that any K-State fan wanted to see going out. And then it's like, clearly, Jacob Parrish has his helmet removed, so it's like very clearly a concussion thing because someone's carrying his helmet off the field, and you just have fans like booing there. It was just yeah, they're a little, you can tell they're a little new to this, paying attention to football thing. The most hilarious example you already pointed out was when they, got the first down inside the one. Someone said, who did I see? Was that Derek? Someone had said that the Colorado sideline reacted to that too, that they maybe thought that they had a stop there. I was like,
not surprised. Look, anybody that understands any football knows it's just complete idiocy if they think K-State's faking injuries there with their best secondary players against a Colorado passing attack. Marquise Siegel. Look, Keenan Garber, you could tell he cramped up right away. It was like as he's going to the ground on the play, his leg locks up. It wasn't anyone acting out there. Like, you can tell when guys are faking injuries, they'll just it'll be like a defensive lineman just falling to the ground like 10 seconds after a play, and the sideline telling him to go down. Obviously, that wasn't what was happening here. K-State was incredibly banged up, and they were dropping like flies there when it was Parrish, Siegel, Garber. I'm probably missing somebody else, I feel like, that went down at some point. It was
Justice. Did you get Justice James?
Justice James, yeah. So you were playing down a lot of guys. I think at one point, K-State, I don't know if this, we have to go back and rewatch it. DY had thought they finished the game there with Daniel Cobbs, Nakendre Steiger, and Zason Rich out there on the field in the secondary. So we know Siegel came back in at some point, and I'm not sure, like, it sounded like he might have left again, but then maybe came back in. I have to go back and rewatch the game and see. But yeah, you were playing down some significant numbers in the secondary against a pretty vaunted passing attack.
But man, I mean, the man of the hour is DJ Giddens. Like, what a game from DJ Giddens, who I was just listening on my way back home a second ago to his post-game press conference, which, and it's like funny as always, just not much to say about it. But he was a star, in front of me. He's got Skip Bayless tweeting about him last night. Like, he absolutely shined. He's just so damn good right now. I had this thought. I saw Deuce Vaughn tweeting about him last night, and I was like, man, like, if you could, would you trade DJ Giddens right now for prime Deuce Vaughn? Like, I don't know, man. Like, DJ is crazy. He goes over 180 yards. He averages over 7 yards a carry in the game. Just another outstanding effort. Obviously, he had the huge reception too, and just was the key to being able to pound them. I heard Dion say after the game too, like, hey, this isn't, and yes, by the way, thank you, Nick. This is our top storyline. This is our top storyline today, is that DJ Giddens was an absolute star. Brought to you by our friends at Elenco. I'm sure they loved watching what DJ Giddens did. But he gets a chance to shine on a national stage against I will say this. I know that the easy reaction would be to be like, okay, well, Colorado's run defense really does totally suck. Prime said after the game, he was kind of like, man, I mean, it's not like there was a ton of room around there. He's just a really good back. And I kind of thought the same thing. I was like, I didn't think it was a totally dreadful effort from Colorado's run defense. It's just that DJ Giddens is that damn good. Like, he doesn't always have a lot of space, but he makes the most of it, and he was absolutely embarrassing people. What he did to Shiloh Sanders would get you thrown in jail in 35 states, man. I mean, that's that video went absolutely wild on the internet. I was so glad to see ESPN tweeting it out there because he completely embarrassed the guy. He is outstanding right now. I love DJ. I knew he would be good this year, but he's taking it to another level. And remember, the narrative on him coming into this year, Cole, was like, well, he's been great at home, but those home road splits, they change a lot on the road. He hasn't been as good on the road. I mean, you can take that narrative and shove it where after the performance that he put on display on Saturday.
25 carries for 182 yards. Pro Football Focus had him with 121 yards after contact, John. So 121 out of 182 yards after contact, to your point. Broke 11 tackles in the game, which is just ridiculous. His lateral mobility, his ability to jump cut guys and make guys miss is one of the most underrated aspects of his game. And to your point, I mean, I thought about this last night too. You can make a very, very strong case that DJ Giddens is the second best running back in program history at this point, behind only Darren Sproles. I mean, Deuce Vaughn, we all love Deuce, and this is not a knock on him at all, but DJ Giddens is a complete running back as well. And his physicality and just how much of the brunt he can take on this offense and carry the workload, he is an incredible player. I mean, consider this. DJ Giddens is currently on pace to reach 1,000 yards rushing on his 138th carry this season. He's at 786 yards right now and 108 rushing attempts, 7.3 yards per rush. To put it in perspective how remarkable that is, Darren Sproles owns the school record for fastest to 1,000 yards in a season. He did it on 159 attempts. DJ Giddens has 51 more attempts to go before he's at 159, and he's at 786. If you were to extrapolate out the 7.3 yards per carry that DJ Giddens is averaging right now and say that he did that over 51 more attempts, he'd be at 1,178 yards at 159 attempts. Darren Sproles did it in his 10th game of the season in 2002 when he got to the fastest in program history to 1,000 yards. It was his 10th game. DJ Giddens is at 786 after 6. It's incredible what he is doing. He's averaging 6 yards per carry in his career. Darren Sproles owns the school record at 6.11. The next closest is Alex Barnes at 5.71 in his career. So DJ Giddens is currently number 2 in K-State program history for yards per carry at 6.0. And he is gaining on Darren Sproles as well there. I mean, he's just been an incredible running back for this K-State attack and continues to carry the workload. He's also number 7 in the country with 22 plays, 22 rushes of 10 yards or more. He's number 3 in the country, John, with 10 rushes or 20 more yards or more. It's special. I mean, he's become far more explosive. And you just look at last night, rushing attempts, so 10 yards or more is an explosive rushing attempt in college football. DJ Giddens had a 14-yard rush, 20, 26, 13, 20, 12, 15. Just a special talent. He had a run where they made contact on him like 2 yards at the line of scrimmage. I think it was in like a 2nd and 8, and he got 13 yards. I mean, just the ability, his vision, and his ability to wear down defenses, break tackles, he's incredible.
I mean, the only thing that seemed to really slow him down much at all was Shiloh Sanders taking kind of a cheap shot at him in the first half when K-State was about to score. I saw the replay of that going around on Twitter this morning, too. I was kind of shaking my head at that a little bit. Yeah, man, it's tough to like talk about him as much every single week because, like, what do you say? He gives you the same performance every week, which is just ridiculous. You know, I mean, you combine the highlight of him just juking Shiloh Sanders down to his knees with the play against Oklahoma State, you know, where he gets to the second level and was it the touchdown run or another one of the long runs where I think it was a touchdown run where he just left another guy in the dust. He was right there, one-on-one, ready to tackle him. You're just not going to do that right now. I think the discussion for best running back in the Big 12, which was such a crowded group at the beginning of the year, right now is probably between he and Taj Brooks. You know, I don't know that there's anybody else that really belongs in that category. RJ Harvey at UCF, maybe. You know, Cam Scatteraboo had a really nice game for Arizona State the other day, and he is very good. But I think Taj Brooks and DJ Giddens are kind of in a class of their own right now.
Yep, I would agree. And I mean, K-State as an offense right now is 6.43 yards per carry on the season. That ranks number 3 in the country, and that is the best among all Power 4 schools in college football in terms of yards per rush. What's so fascinating, John, about this K-State football team is it's kind of a throwback where now you hear about the passing attacks and being good against the pass and also being good with the passing game offensively. K-State's kind of the opposite right now. Now, the passing game is obviously getting better, but when you look at the defense and the offense and the formulas for success that K-State is having right now, K-State is number 3 in college football in yards per carry allowed defensively at 2.53 yards per rush allowed so far in the season. It's been a huge improvement area for this team. Remember, last year, K-State was in the hundreds in yards per carry allowed overall. I think they got north of 5 yards per carry on the season. They're at 2.53 through 6 games. Now, yes, sacks have influenced part of that as well, but you've got a team that's number 3 in the country in yards per carry allowed defensively, and a team on the other end of the spectrum on offense that's number 3 in the country in yards per rush. So it's kind of that old school throwback where they found their formula for success to control the clock, time of possession, 35 minutes to 25 minutes. Yesterday, Colorado's offense only on the field for 59 plays. K-State be able to take away and make Colorado already couldn't run the ball really. I mean, they're a one-dimensional team by nature. It felt like Colorado came out with the mindset to try and run the football in this game, and K-State just bottled it up right away. Colorado's running backs on true rushing attempts had 10 carries for 21 yards in the game. And I know we were talking about offense there and DJ Giddens, but I do just have to mention this stat, John, and I know you saw it already, but when you do factor in sacks, and this has always been the case in college football, the sacks count against rushing yards. Colorado had negative 29 yards rushing and a negative 1.5 yards per carry. That's the worst by a Colorado team in both categories in any game since at least the 2000 season. That's a span of 296 college football games by the Colorado Buffaloes. And it probably goes back even farther than that. SportsReference.com only has game logs that go through the year 2000 or go back to 2000. So that's just going back to 2000. I could go back farther if I had the time, and it probably stretches longer than that. I also went through the K-State game log history in terms of yards per rush allowed and yards per carry in any game. The only game since the year 2000 where an opponent rushed for fewer yards was against Baylor in 2002 at Baylor, when Baylor had negative 37 yards rushing against Kansas State. Colorado was at negative 29. However, Baylor was negative 1.2 yards per carry in that game. If you look at the negative 1.5 yards per carry Colorado had, that is the worst, or the best by a K-State defense since the year 2000 in any game. Really, honestly, pretty ridiculous when you think about some of those defenses and how much they got after it in the early 2000s for K-State.
Well, also on the Colorado side of things, there were some bad Colorado teams there. When you think about Colorado football from 2000 on, you got some teams that certainly could put up some gross numbers when it comes to running the football. By the way, that top storyline, as I mentioned, brought to you by our friends at Alinco, local company based out of Kansas City, owned by K-Staters. For all your home improvement needs, they have you covered. They're locally owned since 1986 in an industry where most have been bought out by national companies. So if you need new windows or a bathroom remodel, premium window replacements, Kohler Luxstone shower systems, new siding on your home, they can do all of that. You don't need to be in Kansas City or Manhattan. They'll come to Western Kansas, Northeast Kansas, the entire KC Metro, Manhattan, Emporia, Topeka, Wichita, Rossville, etc. Go to alencohome.com. That's ALENCO home.com, ALENCO home.com to check out their services, including free estimates, and call Sam at 913-961-2165. Yeah, K-State defensive line had a great game, and that's how they were able to get stops on defense. It was all about pressure, whether it was picking up sacks. I mean, basically what you had were a handful of sacks that killed drives. K-State had 6 sacks in the game. And you had an interception in the end zone that was in large part because pressure got to Shedeur and caused him to sail a ball. So, I mean, that was obviously massive in the game. Brendan Mott seemed virtually unblockable for a lot of the game for Colorado. And that is the thing. Well, the defense, Colorado fans' gripes about people not respecting their defense, I do believe that it is definitely improved. The offensive line was the area where you looked at and you're like, I don't know about that, guys, because they were getting torched. K-State's defensive line has been okay this year, solid, maybe the word for it, not dominant, and they were pretty dominant in the game on Saturday. And yes, Colorado couldn't run the ball. I thought it was kind of a gift early on that Colorado was trying so hard to run the ball coming out. First couple of possessions, they probably hurt themselves by not just doing what they were going to do, which is throw it all over the K-State secondary. They tried to make a concentrated effort to run the ball, and I don't know, would there have been a single run, when you're talking about success rate, would there have been a single run that Colorado had in the game that would have been considered a successful play and success rate?
The only one would probably be the one that they punched in for a touchdown, I think, John, on 3rd and goal at the end, because they actually got it in for a TD. But other than that, probably no. And yes, I thought it was a gift too. Now, I also was a bit surprised in that first half. Deion punted in 4th and 1, 4th and 1.5, 2 different times. But part of that is probably dictated by the fact that they don't trust that they can run the ball in a 4th and 1 or 4th and 1.5. So you got to drop back, and so many more things can go wrong. A pass can get deflected by a defensive lineman, a pressure could occur. And so they punted because of that, because they couldn't run the football against Kansas State. They struggled to run the football overall. It was the big talking point that we had going into the game that we all debated, is how much pressure can you bring at Shedeur Sanders, because that has been the weak point for Colorado since Deion Sanders became the head coach, is protecting Shedeur Sanders. Well, the answer was yes, K-State blitzed at times. I thought they blitzed maybe a little bit more than maybe I expected, but they beat them with 3- and 4-man pressures, 3- and 4-man fronts and rushes several times. Like, K-State had 6 sacks in the game. Now, there probably could have been 8, 9 sacks. The pressure rate, I haven't looked up the exact numbers on pressure rate allowed, but it has to be pretty special what the K-State defensive line did there. They drew a couple of holds as well. There probably could have been a couple more that should have been called, where they're beating their guy. They're rushing Shedeur Sanders on the throws. They had him flying around. And what also was significant, like, these aren't just like 3 or 5 yard sacks that he's taken, John. They had sacks of 16 yards, 18-yard loss, like a 12-yard loss. Like, these are sacks that are putting Colorado in a 2nd and 25, a 3rd and 20, where it becomes more problematic for them to be able to convert. Yes, Shedeur Sanders went 34 of 40 passing in the game, a really special stat line, but it's hard to overcome 3rd and 20, 3rd and 17, and be able to convert that no matter how good your wide receivers are and how good your quarterback play is. Because when you're in that situation and you're getting so much pressure, you got to give him time to convert a 3rd and 15, 3rd and 20. And the way K-State was getting after it, he didn't have that time. Brendan Mott leads K-State with 2 sacks. Brendan Mott is having the best season of his football career. He has 6 sacks now on the season. That's number 8 nationally in all of college football. His career high was 6 sacks in two years ago. Last year, I think Brendan had 1.5 sacks on the entirety of the season. And one of the things we debated is, can Brendan Mott get back to what he was back then? Like, he's whipping his guys up front. He's been tremendous. 4 other guys have a sack in the game. Ryan Davis gets a sack. Travis Bates, Desmond Purnell gets one, which I think was actually created really by Brendan Mott beating his man, and Desmond Purnell cleaned it up. So K-State's pass rush got after it. K-State now has 18 sacks on the season. They're averaging 3 per game. That is number 15 in all of college football in terms of sacks per game as a team. K-State had 25 sacks last season overall. They averaged 1.92 per game. That ranked 83rd in the country. Now they're top 15 this year. They've made a big jump there. The secondary has struggled a lot more than we expected, but the pass rush, without them, they'd be in a lot more trouble. K-State is getting after the quarterback and putting some pressure on these guys.
Yeah, I mean, Toby, I thought, had some nice moments in the second half. They did finally get a couple of holding calls in there. I thought, there may be, people could say this every week, there maybe were another one or two that it felt like they were getting a pretty good pass rush and a hold could have been called. But yeah, massive. I mean, you had to have it. That was the formula to getting Colorado off the field, getting pressure with that defensive line. And it worked great in the first half, only giving up 7 points in the first half. Not quite as well when you were accumulating more injuries on the back end in the second half. But tip of the cap to Joe Klanderman and that entire crew on the defensive side of the ball. I'm trying to think. We mentioned Chris Tennant. Shout out to him for knocking through a field goal. They had one nice kick return. That was that Rich?
Rice.
No, Devon Rice. I'm sorry, Devon Rice. Who's another true freshman that got out there and played some, and Devon Rice had a nice return. Probably should have taken a knee on the last return that he ran out there to the 15, but Avery Johnson helped mitigate that. Maybe we should spend a little bit more time on Jayce Brown, who had the best day for a K-State receiver since Byron Pringle's eruption in Stillwater, which it is funny. I was just reading through, I think it was KSO where I was reading this, but I'm like, it was the best day for a K-State receiver since Byron Pringle went nuts in Stillwater. Then I looked at it and it was like, I think it was like 160 some yards for Byron Pringle. And I was like, damn, I know it felt like he put up like 400 receiving yards there, but I laugh because it's a testament to like what the K-State offense has been for so long, ever since Tyler Lockett left. Like your best receiving day in the last like decade is a guy going for 160. Now he had like 3 touchdowns in that game and a kick return for a touchdown. So like, I understand. And I don't mean to take anything at all away from Jayce. He was fantastic. It was a great game for him all the way around, but that is just kind of a sign of the times for the K-State offense. But that is clearly the guy that Avery trusts and wants to go to. That last drive, I mean, they were within inches of hitting a big one on the first play of that last drive when they got some man coverage and Avery floated it out there for him. And then Avery said in his postgame press conference, he told them, hey, I'm going to come back to you. They said the call was an RPO. And again, Avery saw one-on-one coverage out there. And this time he wanted to put more air under it because he felt like he didn't put enough on the first one. So Jayce did have to stop for a second, but that's where obviously his positioning there was crucial. But, it feels kind of like last year, Cole, when like the Texas game in the middle of the year, Jayce all of a sudden jumped into this like, okay, this guy could be like number one receiver type of role. And we definitely saw that on a night when Keegan Johnson, I said, I had to ask you guys, like, did he even play? Like, it just didn't seem like he was very visible throughout the game.
He wasn't targeted. I mean, he never got targeted in the game. The only time I noticed Keegan is he went in motion on one play in the second half, and I was like, oh, forgotten all about Keegan. I mean, interestingly enough, they targeted Dante Cephas a couple times early in that game. He actually, I think the second play of the game, he made a nice catch on an 11-yard route on Travis Hunter.
I literally said out loud, Cole, when that play happened, I was like, wow, they went Dante Cephas working on Travis Hunter to start the game. Like, okay, I'll take it. It worked.
Sending a message that they're not afraid, right? And look, Jayce Brown now, his last 4 games, John, 310 yards receiving over the last 4. That's 78 yards per game. He's now got 398 yards receiving through 6 games. He's tracking toward 800 in the regular season. He's really coming on. He was that explosive guy last year, 16.2 yards per catch. I think we talked about led college football among true freshmen in yards per catch last season at 16.2. He's a 17.3 now this season. He's become that big play guy once again for this team. He also had like a nice little 25-yard pass over the middle on an RPO in the third quarter, like early fourth quarter. I can't remember when it exactly was.
Well, I think that was the fourth quarter because that was the drive that wound up in the interception when they were trying to put the game away.
Yeah. So yeah, Jayce Brown 6 for 121 in that game, and that's just a heck of a effort on that touchdown catch. Really savvy play to wall off his defender, like we talked about at the onset of this show. We'll have Curry Sexton to kind of break down that play with the All-22 on a show this week as well and dissect how Jayce played that and just the play overall. So be on the lookout for that. We'll have that again up on YouTube later this week when Curry and I talk. But yeah, Jayce has obviously been huge. He's really close with Avery Johnson, and those two certainly have a chemistry with each other out there on the field. So gigantic game. He's that go-to number one wide receiver once again this year, just like he was the last back half of the season last year. Jayce has been terrific for this K-State offense. The rushing attack, obviously, terrific as well. Let's hit on that drive, though, that did lead to the interception, John, just real quick there, because I was a bit befuddled, and this is, I'm not looking to complain about much after a huge road win, but they get to 2nd and 6 at the 31 of Colorado with 4 minutes and 10 seconds left in the game. And at that point, you knew, like, a field goal only puts you up 6. Like, they're with the secondary injuries and how beat up they are, they got to get a touchdown or either just melt the clock altogether. So you could tell their mindset was 4-down territory, especially once they got in that area in the field. So I guess 2nd and 6 at the Colorado 31. DJ Giddens hasn't been stopped all night. Colorado's got 1 timeout left. There's 4 minutes and 10 seconds left. And instead of running the ball, K-State drops back and throws it 3 consecutive times. And then eventually it gets picked off and they return it to the K-State 18, et cetera. We all know what happened from there. But I was very surprised and disappointed that K-State didn't at least either on the 2nd and 6 or 3rd and 6 try to run the ball to get in a 4th and manageable or more manageable situation if they knew they were going to use it as 4-down territory.
Brought to you by our friends at You Could Be the Sponsor here. This is Cole's weekly complaints about the offensive coordinator on
please. What you didn't have an issue with that at all?
Well, I mean, yeah, it was in the moment. Yes, it was a little frustrating. I will just say, I mean, Chris Kleiman made a point to say after the game, like, guys, like they changed what they were doing defensively. They were loading up the box even more. They were doing more to take away the run game. That's why we had to come out and pass. I don't know. Maybe that's a situation you could break down with Curry. I'd be interested to hear what Curry has to say about that.
Maybe we'll pull an All-22 on one of those, because I do think there was at least one play that was maybe there. I think Dylan Edwards was maybe going to be open, but the D-line, the defensive tackle, maybe got his hand on it.
Yes, the ball that got batted down, it was a little tough to see from the replay, but I thought on the replay it did look like he was open. It would have at least gotten you close to the first down. Yeah.
Although they also showed the one play, Colorado didn't have a defender out on K-State. It might have been Will Swanson. And
and some of that, Avery didn't recognize it, but also like Will Swanson ran like an out route into the one defender that was over there. I was like, guys, can we recognize this? Raise your hand, Will, and then just run forward.
That's one where, look, I always compare like Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes. Like, Kelsey's just got to know, like, I got nobody on me. He's going to run a simple hitch or like get to the open spot on the not run into the defender there. But you know what? I'm not going to be too nitpicky. I mean, John, you just took a shot about my jokes about Connor Riley, offense coordinator. So I have to do this. Okay, Colorado, you were right. Like, the Colorado defense is much improved. And they came into that game allowing 1.7 points per drive on the season. That was number 30 in the country, and it was top 5 in the Big 12, actually top 4, I believe, in the Big 12. K-State scored 31 points on 9 drives. That's 3.44 points per drive. K-State more than doubled the season average for points per drive that Colorado defense had given up in a really tough atmosphere. And I pulled the points per drive for Colorado in all 6 games, including the K-State game. North Dakota State had 26 points on 9 drives. That's 2.9 points per drive. Nebraska only had 21 points on 11 drives because they had a pick 6. That's 1.9 points per drive. Colorado State had 9 points on 11 drives, 0.81. Baylor had 24 points on 13 offensive drives, 1.85. And UCF had 21 points on 12 drives, 1.75. So the Power 4 schools they played, nobody even got over 2 points per drive against Colorado. K-State was at 3.44 yesterday. a really masterful job. Like, it may not be as sexy as you think when you're watching it live as a K-State fan and you see some of these explosive, dynamic offenses across college football, but K-State is getting the job done. The last 2 games now, K-State has scored 73 points on 21 offensive drives. That is 3.5 points per drive. That is an incredible number. That would be top 5 in college football, typically in the entire course of a season if you average 3.5 points per drive. So Connor Riley is doing some really nice things with the offense. And there are some things to clean up still. And like, you're going to have qualms as a fan with an offensive coordinator. You could nitpick a couple plays in every game, regardless, even with the Chiefs, et cetera. So that's just me nitpicking a crucial point there that I was a bit frustrated with. And then, I don't know if, like we've talked about, Avery Johnson's stat line finishes out at 15 to 23 for 224 yards. I mean, John, he averaged 9.7 yards per pass. Guess how much Shedeur Sanders averaged per pass? Shout out to Scott Wildcat of Bosco's Boys for mentioning this on Twitter. They both averaged 9.7 yards per pass attempt. So, because Shedeur Sanders threw the ball 40 times.
Yeah,
Avery only threw it.
I was going to say, because, that dude has to throw it 80% of their offensive snap, probably more than that. Well, someone else made the point to me, just texted me this morning. So Avery, he's 5-1 this season as a starter, so he's 6-1 as a starter now. He's beaten 2 or 3 top 25 teams. I can't remember with Arizona State and Oklahoma State if they were both ranked. I think they were.
They were.
So 6-1 as a starter with 3 wins over ranked teams, and he's 2-1 on the road. Like, that's pretty good, man, for where he's at this stage in his career. And then Shahan Jayaraja, who's a national college football guy from CBS Sports, made the point, too, after Avery had to throw to Jayce to win the game. He said, see, that's the thing about Avery Johnson. Sometimes he makes throws that look like that. And he said, and he will make those much more consistently very soon. And it's like, that's exactly it. And we're seeing the growth. You're seeing the growth. How much better did he look there than he did at Tulane? How much better did he look there than even first game of the year against UT Martin? You think about that. Like, the passing game has definitely taken some major strides.
On the play to Jayce, the 50-yard touchdown, there was a defender starting to fly into Avery's face. And he just sat there in the pocket and delivered the throw. He didn't try to evade or escape the pocket. He sat there, he made the throw, came back to a really nice play. And he's just continued to get better. The maturation process, just like we talked about at BYU when things went south, didn't have an answer. 4 weeks later, he's got an answer. It's just the growth process, the evolution continues to grow. The offense continues to get better. They'll continue to improve. It's just huge to get that win on the road. And now, if you can go to West Virginia and steal it, and I say steal it, you're going to be favored. I think K-State's favored by 3.5 as of now, as we record on Sunday. But West Virginia, you get that win. John, before the season, when we did our season preview, none of us had K-State any better than 6-1 through 7. You had them at 5-2, I think, correctly losing to BYU, and then you had them losing at West Virginia. We all had them losing at West Virginia. And, if you can win that game, you're sitting at 6-1. Yeah, the Big 12 standings are kind of murky right now with 3-0 teams. But if you just take care of business and win your games, you control your destiny the way I see it. Like, you'll be in the Big 12 championship if you get to 8-1, maybe 7-2. It just depends on who you lose that game to if you do lose one. But this game in Morgantown will be a huge, huge setup, because if you can steal it, you're 6-1, 3-1 in the league with a couple of huge road wins under your belt.
Yeah, just keep winning games. There was a lot of, we were in a group chat yesterday where there was a lot of talk about, if this happens, then this. And, with Iowa State and BYU looking very good yesterday, just keep winning games and it will take care of itself. If you do lose another game, it's going to get tricky. But for right now, just keep taking care of business. The West Virginia game, I got to be honest, I watched a lot, almost wire to wire, that game against Iowa State. I'm a little surprised. I guess the letdown effect and back-to-back road trips, I guess I understand why the line's where it's at. Point being, West Virginia, outside of a scripted drive at the beginning of the game, did not look very good. They consistently, watching them a lot the last few weeks, they have these flashes of brilliance where the offense looks great and it's moving, and Garrett Green gets out in the open and makes plays with his legs. but then they just shoot themselves in the foot. They'll have some of the dumbest stuff go wrong. Yesterday, they had the center going like the anti-Creed Humphrey instead of snapping it, rolling it back on the ground like a grounder is short. Everything was high, and that cost them multiple plays, cost them a third down conversion. Garrett Green threw a couple of bad interceptions, and just a game where they could have really taken control in the first half. They didn't. And Iowa State, man, I know we all hate it, but they're just rock solid, and they keep coming at you. They don't panic. They're just solid throughout the course of a game and kind of wear you down and wait for you to make mistakes. And West Virginia was more than willing to oblige with a lot of that. So I don't know. In some ways, I feel better about the West Virginia trip because of that. Now, you could very easily go lose that game. West Virginia is capable enough, absolutely, of winning the game. But I came away from watching how they went up against Iowa State thinking, all right, this puts my mind at ease actually a little bit about how tough of a trip that may be.
Yeah, you wonder about what the mindset is of West Virginia as well after, that was a big matchup. Like that fan base probably pretty let down now. They're sitting 3-3 overall, and they're 2-1 in the league, so they still have a shot at a Big 12 championship. They got a top 20 team coming to their house, K-State 17th, in the latest polls that come out today. So, I mean, I'm sure they'll be fired up, but K-State, I will say this, so first of all, we don't know the nature of the injuries K-State suffered in the secondary. So who can they get back? Can they get a Jacob Parrish back? Will Marquise Siegel be okay? It'd be important to get those guys back, obviously. Though West Virginia is not a huge, West Virginia's strength, their MO is to run the football with Donaldson, Jaheim White, and Garrett Green at quarterback. And K-State, I just mentioned, is right now number 3 in the country in rush defense in terms of yards per rush allowed. So it almost plays to K-State's strength what West Virginia's strength is. Now, K-State has not faced a quarterback with Garrett Green's level of mobility and toughness. And so that will be a different level of test. But I feel better about matching up against West Virginia because right now the secondary has been the weakness for K-State, and they're less likely to be able to exploit it at as high of a level of frequency. They're capable, but they're not at the level of obviously Colorado. And so, and their secondary is not very good. West Virginia's secondary is bad. K-State should be able to throw the ball on them. I haven't looked at their rushing numbers yet allowed, but I mean, Carson Hansen ran for almost 100 on them last night for Iowa State. Abu Sama only had 2 carries. I don't know if he got hurt.
They haven't been playing him as much. It's been, I don't, is it Jaden Jackson? I don't know what the guy's first name is because Tim Brando just goes out of his way to say Action Jackson as much as he possibly can. But, they've been using the Jackson kid who's really shifty, small. And then, Carson, what's his last name?
Hansen. K-State recruited him out of high school. He was a running back recruit that K-State took a look at as well. So huge opportunity going to Morgantown. Hopefully K-State can get some guys healthy. Hopefully get Avery healthy after getting dinged up too. DJ, I'm sure, is a little dinged up, pretty sore after 25 carries. And some dirty play by Shiloh Sanders, which is his MO. So, hopefully everyone gets healthy and K-State bounces back, gets ready for another huge one.
West Virginia has a good ground game. That'll be a challenge. They've got some good backs. And Garrett Green can run it, like you said. Cole, 2 important things that I have not asked you about yet. One, what'd you think of Jayce Brown staring down the Colorado guest section, basically like an entire NBA All-Star roster, and Cameron over there after scoring the game-winning touchdown? That's point 1.
I love that. I think it's incredible. Afterwards, what was it? Bradley Beal staring at the Fox College Football. Bradley Beal staring at. It's so interesting. There's so many NBA connections to Deion, like Kevin Durant.
I know they said Nuggets players. I could not tell you much about the Nuggets roster other than Jokic. So I don't know who's on the Russell Westbrook was there, and he apparently just joined the Denver Nuggets. I don't know anything about.
Well, Carmelo Anthony, a former Nugget. He's there. This is crazy. So many NBA guys. You think there'd be more former NFL stars or guys like that were there?
Well, I mean, there have been T.O. and Ochocinco have been on the sideline this year.
Yeah. It'll be really interesting what the TV ratings look like from that game too, John. Colorado's been top 10, I think, in college football and TV ratings, obviously top in the Big 12. And K-State, I'm getting ready to pull the numbers on it when these come out, but K-State's been, really effective in terms of ratings and views this season. And, probably top 20 top 25 among Power 4 pretty solid. And so this will only boost those numbers. So nice to get that win on the big stage, like you mentioned before, when they've kind of struggled in those big moments when a lot of people are watching. This year, they've won in those big moments with Arizona and 2.5 plus million people watching, and now this one.
How did you feel about Avery Johnson taking a selfie with a couple of fans?
Yeah, I don't know if K-State knew about that at the time and how they'll feel about it as a staff, but we'll see that again. I mean, in hindsight, they won. It's funny. Yeah, I mean, you're right up against the fans there. It was, at first I thought he was like, maybe like K-State handed him a phone to call his parents real quick just to let him know, hey, I'm okay. I didn't know. Like, I didn't know where that phone came from. And then you see the replay of it and, yeah, taking a selfie there with the fans. Look, it's part of the fun, I guess. So it's kind of cool, honestly. But I don't know Chris Kleiman what they think of it. So
yeah, that's kind of one where I was like, I don't know. I mean, I don't try to be the killjoy at all. I'm typically the other side of that. But I was like, yeah.
What'd you think of the Dion dance that he did right out of the gate?
They won, so it works.
That's confidence. Now, I was Mark Jones like basically trying to issue a warning to Avery. Like he was like, "Oh, I don't know if I do that." Like Mark Jones, the PR guy for Dion, and really wanting to, give a warning to Avery there. Like you probably shouldn't do that. I thought it was great. Showed confidence.
Well, it did, but it also was like, I don't know. And you got Shiloh over there on the other side. I don't want cheap shots coming in at you because of that. So that was a concern that I had for sure, in the anxious mind of a fan throughout the game. That definitely crossed my mind. And then we saw him, take a cheap shot at DJ Giddens. So, understandable.
The replay of the cheap shot on DJ, it's ridiculous. He's clearly going in to spear him, puts his head down. It's ridiculous that wasn't flagged. He's a headhunter out there on the field. And at least Dion said he played horrible, called out his son after the game. Do you see his comments about Shiloh? Yeah. So, hey, it was great to have Shiloh out there because he's actually not very good at football. So him taking the field for Colorado was a great thing.
Oh, yeah. I already saw that narrative out there. Fans placing a lot of the blame for the game on Shiloh for sure. All right. Well, that was fun. K-State does get the win. Eventful week. Fun week. Be interesting to see, what the comments are like here. A lot of Colorado fans promise to come back here after the game. So we'll see. We'll see if they are back. Shout out to you guys. If nothing else, you made it a much more entertaining week for everybody. Thanks to Nick Springer behind the scenes. Thanks to all of our great sponsors. We can hopefully get a little bit of the scoop from DY on what things were like on the next show as we look forward and preview West Virginia. But thank you to everybody for listening. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we will talk to you soon.